All right, today we're headed to the Tibetan Plateau, to a mountain that is wrapped in more mystery than almost any other place on Earth, Mount Kailash. It's sacred to literally billions of people, a place of just immense spiritual power. But what is really going on behind all those viral stories you see online? Let's peel back the layers and find out.
And this is the big question, isn't it? I mean, we've climbed the tallest mountains, we've explored the deepest parts of the ocean, and yet Mount Kailash, which stands at just over 6,600 meters, remains completely untouched. So what gives? This is the central puzzle we're going to try to solve today.
Now, to even begin to understand Kailash, you first have to wade through this thick fog of myths that surrounds it online. We're talking stories of time travel, ancient pyramids, mysterious energies, you name it. And it turns out a lot of these viral tales, they all come from one very, very specific starting point. Yeah, this isn't just some random collection of internet folklore that popped up out of nowhere. A huge number of these really sensational claims can be traced right back to one man and his expedition in the late 90s. So meet Dr. Ernst Moldashev. Now, he wasn't a geologist, he wasn't an archaeologist or a historian, he was a Russian eye surgeon. You heard that right. And in 1999, after a trip to Tibet, he published a book with these absolutely incredible claims, and just like that, the modern mythology of Kailash was born. But his most famous story, oh, it gets even wilder. He wrote about these 4 climbers who tried to go up the mountain, and in a matter of hours, they aged by decades and then died within a year. I mean, it is a terrifying story, but there's just one problem. There are no records of it. Anywhere. No names, no expedition logs, no death certificates, nothing. The story, as far as anyone can tell, was created purely for his book.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's try to separate the sensational from the scientific. We're going to tackle the 3 biggest myths head-on: the claims about time travel, this idea of a secret energy source, and the theory that the mountain itself is actually an artificial pyramid. This one is huge. You hear it all the time. Pilgrims on the trek around the mountain often report that their hair and their nails seem to grow way, way faster. The myth, of course, is that time itself is speeding up on the mountain. And people who believe this, they even point to real physics to try and back it up.
And they're not totally wrong about the concept. Einstein's theory of relativity does say that time moves just a little bit faster where gravity is weaker. And since you're further from the center of the Earth when you're on a tall mountain, gravity is a tiny bit less, so time should speed up. The concept is real. But the real question is, by how much? So, by how much does time actually speed up? Well, when you do the math, if you were to spend 12 hours on Mount Kailash, you would age faster by a grand total of 30 nanoseconds. That's 30 times billionths of a second, an amount so ridiculously small, it is completely and utterly undetectable.
So, what are the pilgrims actually experiencing? Well, it's a pretty well-documented biological thing. The air at that altitude is extremely dry and cold, and it causes dehydration. Your skin, especially around your scalp and your fingernails, it shrinks and retracts. This makes your hair and nails look longer. It's a powerful optical illusion, not time travel.
Okay, next up, let's talk about that famous photo. I'm sure you've seen this one floating around online. It's a satellite image of Kailash, and it's glowing with this weird blue energy. The captions usually claim that NASA detected some kind of mysterious power source. But what happens when we go straight to the source? We go to NASA's own photo library. We pull up the original image from January 2003, and we see something totally different. There's no blue glow, no energy beams, just a mountain with rocks and snow and shadows. So where did all that color come from? The glow actually comes from a scientific technique called a false color composite. Think of it like a scientific coloring book. Scientists assign different colors to different types of data to make them easier to see and analyze. So they might color all the snow blue and all the rock red. It's simply a data visualization tool, not a literal photograph of a secret energy field. So that leads us to another one of Moldashev's big claims, that the mountain's incredibly symmetrical, pyramid-like shape couldn't possibly be natural. He argued that it had to have been carved by some ancient, super-advanced civilization. Geologists, as you might guess, have a very different story. The mountain is made of a natural rock called conglomerate, which is basically just pebbles and sand that have been naturally cemented together. Its sharp, pyramid-like faces were carved over millions of years by glaciers grinding away at the sides and by something called frost wedging. That's where water gets into tiny cracks, freezes, expands, and pop, it splits the rock. It's a masterpiece of natural sculpture. not alien architecture.
So if it's not aliens and it's not time warps, what is this barrier that seems to stop people? Why do so many pilgrims report seeing strange visions, getting terrible headaches, and feeling like some invisible force is pushing them back? Well, the answer is less supernatural and a lot more biological.
The pilgrimage route around Kailash takes you over the Dolma La Pass, which is actually higher than Everest Base Camp. Up there, the oxygen is only at about 50% of what you'd get at sea level. Now, that lack of oxygen can trigger a very real, very life-threatening condition called HAC, which is swelling of the brain. And what are the symptoms? Confusion, loss of balance, and vivid hallucinations. That supernatural force people feel, it's their body telling them they're in the middle of a serious medical emergency.
The same kind of logic applies to the two famous lakes at the base of the mountain. Lake Mansarovar is considered holy, and it's freshwater. Right next to it is Lake Rakshastal, which is considered demonic, and it's saltwater. The reason isn't some ancient curse. It's just hydrology. Think of it like two sinks. Mansarovar has a drain, an outlet that flushes out minerals. Rakshastal has no drain. So for thousands of years, water has only left by evaporating, leaving all those salts behind to get more and more concentrated. So when you get right down to it, the reason no one has ever climbed Kailash has absolutely nothing to do with curses or invisible forces. Sure, it's a technically difficult climb, but the real barrier has always been human choice. In the 80s, the legendary climber, Reinhold Messner, was offered a permit and he turned it down out of respect. Then, in 2001, a Spanish team got a permit, but after massive international protests, the Chinese government revoked it and officially banned climbing on the mountain for good.
And this is where the story gets really incredible, because once you strip away all the science fiction and the myths, what you're left with is actually far more profound, and I think far more miraculous. Forget about energy beams. The real power of this mountain is water. It's the source region for 4 of Asia's greatest rivers, the Indus, the Brahmaputra, the Sutlej, and the Karnali. It is the literal lifeblood for billions of people across India, China, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Now that is a tangible scientific miracle that just dwarfs any story about glowing lights. And while we're talking about characters in this story, we often forget the real hero, Swami Pranavananda. Back in the 30s and 40s, this Indian monk and scientist conducted the very first rigorous scientific surveys of the area. He's the one who accurately mapped the sources of those great rivers. His work is this beautiful fusion of scientific curiosity and deep spiritual respect, a legacy that's far more valuable than any made-up tale. Reinhold Messner just said it perfectly. His refusal to climb wasn't about fear. It wasn't about whether he could or couldn't do it. It was about understanding that some places in the world hold a value that goes way beyond physical achievement. To plant a flag on that summit would be to take something away from the souls of billions of people. And that, I think, leaves us with a final thought. In a world where we want to explore everything, measure everything, conquer and commercialize everything, maybe the true miracle of Mount Kailash is that we, as a species, have collectively decided to just leave this one place alone. A monument not to our ambition, but to our capacity for reverence and for restraint.